Yeah.
about my early years, but the others are more interesting, and then I can come back.
The early years are the boring ones.
Ask me the question.
Well, they're not very specific, but...
Like the answers.
Yeah, would you start with your early years? What
Oh, yes. We see,
was your childhood
I
like?
born in St Clements, lived there till I was 2.5. Then my father had this living in Ickleton with Hinxton. They joined two parishes together, and he was the first man to have the two. And there was a lovely vicarage in Hinxton, and my mother was quite looking forward to it. But of course, the ecclesiastical commissioners, in their wisdom, flogged that. And we lived in Ickleton, but Ickleton was a lovely house. But Hinxton they sold for a modest sum to somebody who was going to have it as a home for delinquent boys. But no sooner had he got it than he sold it off privately. So there we were, these two parishes. The vicar in Ickleton was offered 1/3 of his salary, and the stipend, of course, came entirely from the investments.
Right.
And so he was given 1/3 of it, about £140 a year, out of the 420, as a pension. So my father had to do without that, and cook wouldn't die. He lived on roast beef on Sunday, had a joint of beef every week, and stewed apples, and he had them in different ways every day of the week, until the housekeeper got a new joint the following week. But I never met cook. We lived in this vicarage. It was a lovely, wild area. We had a field where we could potter, and you went out. You didn't have to say what you'd be doing when you'd be back. We used to go and boat on the river, and I remember the sort of wages in those days. One day the garden boy, it was a gardener and a garden boy, the boy was given, my father hadn't got a 10-shilling note, so he gave him a golden half sovereign. And this boy said, "What do you call that, sir?" And he said, "Ask your mother." That would have been quite valuable if they'd kept it, but they probably had to spend it. We had two maids in the house. One was a cook general.
What is a cook general?
Well, she did everything.
Not ordering people around.
You know the old story about somebody who said, "My father was a general and my mother was a cook general." But yes, it's Joan Atkins it was most of the time, and she had a skivvy. We used to have to pump the water up. There was no electricity. We had oil lamps, because when my parents went out to a meeting and left us, children, with a big tall lamp, I suppose it was 2 feet high, and then an oil lamp on the top, they were frightened to death that we'd knock it over and set fire to the house. Because there weren't telephones in the houses.
So what would have happened? Would someone have had to run? If, say...
We would have run out.
Say you'd fallen and broken your leg, or...
Oh, that wouldn't have mattered. That's not like a fire, is it? Well, I suppose they knew where we were, and there were neighbours who were all friendly people. But you didn't just pop out in the car. We had an old car, a Morris Oxford, where you dipped the lights with a lever at the side of the car, which was quite fun. We used to get in and play with it. And then that changed to a Ford.
What boats were you using? You said you boated. What boats were you using? You were on the river.
A boat? Well, I bought a canoe which had been used on the river. Somebody made a hole in it. So I bought it for 5 shillings, and we patched it with canvas on the outside and then pitch in the hole and some plywood on the inside. And then, in those days, people used to make their own canoe with ribs and stringers, I think they're called, and you covered it with fabric. And I remember starting one of those, but I don't think I ever finished it. But this other thing did as well. later on, when the war was on and the Americans had taken over from the RAF, the Americans put drop tanks, you know, the things that were on the end of the wings of the Mustangs. They put them on trestles, making an arc round which their planes would fly to find their way back into the base. Well, two of us had no compunction about stealing one of these, taking it home, cutting a hole in it, and sailing, punting it on the river. But because it had no keel, so it was very unsteady. So that was a theft too far.
Did you get in trouble?
No. Christopher Carter Jonas, who later did rather well, he got a business selling houses. He had a motorbike and sidecar, because the insurance is cheaper on a sidecar, so he must have been 16 by then to be allowed to have a motorbike. Then, so I was taught at home in those early years. Suzanne Etten Moore, I was always trying to find out her age, but she wouldn't tell me. So Christine and I had a governess.
Mm.
And then suddenly we were told she wouldn't be coming anymore. She's got a lovely son, aged about 70 now, but we didn't understand those things and we weren't told. So then we had to go off to school. And Christine and I used to bicycle a mile and a quarter to the station and catch a train to Cambridge every day and then walk into school. She was at the girls' purse and I was at the boys' purse prep school, which was nearer the station. And you did that all term. Because you weren't always on time getting to the station with your bike, you had to run across in front of the train. And the drivers were so patient. They didn't run either of us over. Close. And
Would they wait, or there'd be...
They were taking people to work and children. I think it was lovely for them because they'd been in London with the bombing. Must have been wonderful to come up from Liverpool Street, up through those small places, Audley End, Great Chesterford, Shelford, Cambridge. You got to Cambridge, and there you walked from the train, on about platform 4, past trolleys with fish straight from Grimsby and Lowestoft. And it was stinking. And so you grew up looking on fish as being smelly stuff. You wouldn't want to walk where they'd be because it'd be slippery. But so later on, when fish fingers came out, they didn't smell. We found it quite strange, the flavour and the lack of smell. So there we are at school. Christine, she was clever and a worker, and she did a lot of work, and she would like to have gone to Cambridge. But my mother wouldn't have it. She wanted her at home earning some money.
Oh, really?
Yes, so Christine worked at the Aero Research in Duxford in the laboratory. And
Straight from school?
yes. And Christine got me a job there during my holidays. But I was only paid £2.10 a week for working in the laboratory. But if I went and worked on top of the spin dryer, great big machine, where glue came in, aerolite, and it had been used for drying eggs or milk during the war. The liquid went onto a high-speed thing like a washing up bowl upside down. And by the time it hit the side, it had turned into a powder. Except on the days when I didn't watch the temperature carefully enough and it stuck and we had to dig it out from inside. So that was holiday work. School, well, I was going to school every day. I hadn't really the time for all that academic stuff. I was making a greenhouse. And before I was 15, I certainly had made a greenhouse with my own hands and glazed it. And from that I used to grow tomatoes. In it, I grew tomatoes, and I used to take them out, and people would order. They'd like £1 a week, and I would deliver £1 of tomatoes to this house or that for 11 halfpenny a week. Yeah, I had to buy it a bit under the shop price, sell it under the shop price, but occasionally I just hadn't got enough, so I used to go to the shop and buy them at the higher rate, because that must be the principle of having a customer. You're prepared to take a loss to keep the customer happy.
So you'd go around delivering these tomatoes?
Yes. These were only certain people. I didn't go up the street saying, tomatoes.
Tuppence a
I
bag.
suppose 4 or 5 people. The Godfreys. Yes. And so, what with one thing and another, I hadn't a lot of time to spare for school. I got a school cert. Not brilliant. You see, the sad thing was in school cert, Christine got distinctions in everything